Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the latest installment of the Lilja and Lou podcast. It's been quite a while as Lilja has been touring North America and having a lot of fun at Universal Studios. And did you go to Disneyland too, or?
No, we skipped Disneyland. Yeah.
Okay. And Universal Studios, you went to something really cool, I think, right?
Yeah, the Halloween Horror Nights. And for those of you who doesn't know what that is, it's like lots of haunted houses, zombies running on the streets, clowns with motor chainsaws, and a lot of stuff like that. It's great if you want to be scared.
a real family-friendly environment, yeah.
Yeah, not something you bring your kids to. So
yeah.
If you're over like 15 or 16 and over, and you want to be really scared, that's the place to be.
Okay, so it sounds like your family had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's great. So with Hans back, we've gotten together and we're going to give you a massive Haven review. We're going to review episodes 5 through 9, and we are also going to give you the latest news, and we're going to cover the webcomic that's being run right now over at the StephenKing.com website. We're not going to go into spoilers in this review. We're just going to bring you up to date as to where the comic is right now. And that will make our show for this episode.
Yeah, and we will have spoilers for the Haven episodes. So
That's
if
right.
you haven't seen up to episode 9, you might want to catch up on that before you listen.
Welcome, welcome. Do not fear the door that lies before you. We will protect you. We are your guides, Hans and Lou, and we will give you the latest in Stephen King news. But before we do so, you must prove yourself worthy. You must open the door and join us in the death room.
And it's time for the news again. And some of this news might be a little bit old, but since it's been a while, the last podcast, we are catching up on everything that's happened since then. And as usual, we have some Carrie news.
Yay.
Yay! Whatever are we going to do when Carrie has been premiered?
I don't know. We'll have to pick a new project.
Yeah, and this time is the first teaser that has been released, and I think it looks pretty promising. It doesn't really show much, but it gives a good vibe about the movie. So I think it's a well done teaser, and it serves its purpose.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen it obviously on YouTube as well as in the theater. So, and on the big screen, it comes across much more powerfully than, of course, than it does on our computer screen. So, I think they did a really great job of mixing the larger scale thing of the news reports and the long shot showing like all the buildings being destroyed, and then they're interviewing people. And I love the swoop down to Carrie herself on the street. So it looks like the movie is going to be much more broader in scope as to what happens after Carrie starts to use her powers and goes crazy. So
yeah,
I'm looking for it. It looks like that aspect of the movie will play closer to the book than the original movie did. So that's good.
Yeah.
Also in movie news, we've heard now that the 1982 short story from the anthology Different Seasons is being brought to the screen by Scott Dickerson. He just recently had success with the horror movie Sinister, which I believe starred Ethan Hawke, and he's teaming up with producer Jason Blum who worked with him on Sinister, and they're going to do an adaptation of the Stephen King novella, The Breathing Method, or short story, I should say, which is interesting because that's a pretty specific story, and I wonder how they're going to stretch that out into a movie. But we're very curious to see how they are going to pull it off.
Yeah, it feels like they have to expand it quite a lot.
Quite a bit, I would think, yeah, because that's kind of like a one-trick pony sort of story. So
yeah. It's interesting to see that they are often doing these kind of short stories as movies with King.
Yeah, I think it's just easier to start with something small and build upon it. It's a lot harder to work with something big and cut parts out of it to make it fit into a movie, which you're going to talk about in our next bit of news.
Exactly. And we reported earlier Ben Affleck is making a movie, or maybe several. It's been some different information about that. And now it seems they have problem with the script and getting that done. And
For what movie?
we'll see. Sorry?
For what movie?
The Stand?
The Stand.
Oh, sorry.
That's
I didn't
okay.
say that.
Yeah. You did now. It's all good.
Okay. And we'll see if this movie gets done. I'm not so sure. It's a hard book to make a movie of.
Definitely only one movie.
Yeah, definitely. They will have to take out quite a lot to get it as one movie, and even as two, I think.
Yeah.
So problem is if they are trying to make a script that still makes sense and leaves out a lot. So I can understand that they have a problem with it.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting, his comments. I like his grasp of the material. He says he likes the idea of the book. It's like Lord of the Rings in America, and it's about how we would reinvent ourselves as a society if everything collapsed. So
Yeah.
I like that take, and I hope he can incorporate those kind of themes into it, because I do think that those thematic types of storylines would be very interesting to see brought out more fully in another version of The Stand. Of course, the miniseries touched on that a little bit, but it was a pretty straight to the storyline, and it didn't have a lot of texture to it, or layers, I guess you could say. So it played it pretty straight to the vest. So if they can layer it a little bit like the Lord of the Rings story, because that's a great story, because even though the heroes win, the price that they pay is really high. So I always like those kind of stories. So if they can work that into this version of The Stand, that would be awesome.
Yeah. If done right, it could be a great.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And the next item we have up is another Stephen King book to movie project. And in some ways, I think, Hans, you should really be doing this story, because this is more your cachet, I guess. This is a Stephen King's version of the zombie movie, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And this is the book, of course, Cell. I enjoyed the book. I think it starts out really powerful. I think it kind of peters out later on, but the opening sequence is pretty awesome for sure. And the news that we got here is that Stephen King has co-authored this screenplay, which is the first time in a while, I believe, that he's actually done some screenplay work, which is interesting. And the other news is that John Cusack, who, of course, starred in the cinematic version of 1408, which turned out to be a very solid version of that story, has started to be the lead in this movie. So I'm always been a big John Cusack fan ever since Stand By Me. So it's kind of nice to see him coming back into the King fold again. And I just recently watched him on a movie called The Raven, which is based on the life of, it's based on Edgar Allan Poe. It's a very fanciful version of Poe's last days, I guess you could say. Turns it more into a serial killer slasher kind of movie, but I've always been a big fan of his, so hopefully he can elevate this material. Though I have to say, to be honest, with so much zombie stuff out there, and I don't really think this is one of King's stronger books, except for the, as I mentioned, the opener part. So I'll definitely check it out, but it's not something that I'm going to get super excited about when it actually gets released.
Yeah, well, I also liked the book, and I get the feeling that this is one of the least liked books of King's. I really don't understand why, because I think it was quite a good book.
It would make a great Walking Dead episode.
Yeah, it would. And I like zombies, so that might help. But I like it, and I like John Cusack, and I think this could be a really good movie. My only concern is that it's only not only maybe, but the main reason it's done is because zombies are very hot at the moment, and everything that has to do with zombies is almost a guarantee to sell well. Yeah. I'm a little worried that they might throw this together quite quickly to get it out now while zombies are hot, and they just do a sloppy movie. So, but I hope it's a good movie. I think it could be.
Oh yeah, I definitely hope that too. And zombies are hot right now. Of course, Walking Dead is doing gangbusters on cable. We just saw the trailer for Brad Pitt's new movie, the World War Z. So that's coming out next month or so. So yeah, like you say, I think they're going to rush to get this out next year probably. So we'll have to see how it turns out. But John Cusack, he's enough to make me go see it, even if King wasn't attached to it. So that's always good.
Yeah. And our last news for this time is that finally Ghost Brothers of Darkland County is being released, and it's being released in March of next year, March 19 to be more exactly, and it will be released on a regular edition and a deluxe edition. And it will feature a CD and a DVD, and with a soundtrack, some handwritten lyrics, and a mini documentary on the making of the musical. And I think the documentary will only be in the deluxe edition. So I don't think the DVD will actually have the play in it. I think the DVD will only have the documentary, and the CD will have the music. So it's a good edition, I think. I'm a little disappointed that we don't get to see the stage play in there as well. But being a non-American and haven't seen it live, I really look forward to listening to this and see it.
Yeah, and we should point out this version of the Ghost Brothers was done before the stage play had been performed live, so the cast performing this is quite a bit different than what was in the live performances. Yeah. I'm crossing my fingers that maybe because it's a DVD, we might get a print of a live version. That would be awesome. But I don't know if that's going to happen because it's not listed in the specs. But with a DVD, it wouldn't be very hard to include it. But there might be rights issues around that.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was actually taped.
Yeah,
it wasn't. It's
they usually tape at least one performance nowadays. Usually a couple. So we'll just keep our fingers crossed. Maybe that detail will come out later on. We have no inside knowledge of that at this point. This is just we're just talking like a wish right now. But I agree with you. I would love to see a filmed version of the stage play, and it'll be curious to see how closely the soundtrack matches to the stage play because there were changes. But the list of performers is pretty impressive too, Hans. Don't you agree?
Yeah, we have Elvis Costello, Sheryl Crow, Ty Mahal, Chris Christopherson, Chris Christopherson, and John Mellencamp, of course. So it should be a good soundtrack.
Yeah, and I believe Meg Ryan was also listed as one of the performers.
That's correct.
So yeah, I've always been a big John Cougar fan, and Elvis Costello as well. So, and Sheryl Crow's been pretty good. Chris Christopherson, he was quite the singer in his day, so he's an interesting choice to include him as well. Taj Mahal, I don't know if that's a older band that I'm thinking of, like from the 70s and 60s.
Yeah, but, I don't know who they are.
Yeah, so that's an interesting.
Yeah, and it's fun that this is finally released. I mean, we've been waiting for both the stage play and the CD and the DVD and for many years. So it's good that it's finally being released, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. So we'll definitely keep you updated on that because I have got to believe that it probably won't be easily available in brick and mortar stores. It'll something that you'll definitely probably have to order online, I would imagine.
Yeah.
We'll keep you in the loop on that, but I'm very interested to get my hands on this for sure. And when we do get it, we'll absolutely do a review of it.
Yeah.
If we're still podcasting. Who knows? That's a long ways away.
Well, yes, we are. It's only a month away.
A month? No, what are you talking about? It's only November.
Couple of months.
Yeah, it's 4 months away. So we'll see.
That's nothing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Okay, that's it for the news for this edition. And now it's time to take a look at Haven. And since we are a few episodes behind, we are going to talk about 5 episodes, starting with number 5 and working our way up. And episode 5 is about someone who sees people who has done something wrong and escapes punishment. And this troubled person is inflicting what they have put other people through, they are putting to them. And I kind of like this episode. Did you?
Yeah, I quite enjoyed the whole Lady of Justice as the mysterious vindicator of justice. And I thought the painting aspect of it was really well done.
Yeah.
It's very cool to see that painting in the courthouse with the Lady Justice. The actor that played the judge is somebody that I've seen on a lot of commercials in Canada, so it was kind of a chuckle to see him playing the judge in this episode. Yeah, I grew up with that guy, actually, so he's been around for a long time. If you don't live in Canada, you probably wouldn't know you've probably never seen him in anything else, but as soon as I saw him, I said, boy, this guy's been in almost every commercial I can remember growing up. So it was interesting. Okay. It was interesting seeing him, and it was also interesting that Duke was tied into the story as well because he hadn't paid parking tickets. So I don't really know what kind of justice you could mete out for a guy that doesn't seem like a real major transgression.
I think that was why she destroyed his car.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's the worst thing you can do to someone with parking tickets.
And there was a little bit of echoes of Dead Zone here with the gazebo at the beginning. The guy using the camera. That was kind of interesting.
They mentioned the Shawshank Prison.
Oh, nice catch. Very good.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting from a story point of view, the stuff that was going on with Nathan and Jordan. And
Jordan.
he's trying to get into the guard, and he's telling her, or she asks him to help one of the troubled get out of jail so that he can be whisked away for safety reasons.
Yeah.
And I liked how that played out at the end with Nathan rescuing her basically when they stole him away from the prison transfer. So that played out nicely. And then of course the fact that she gives out pain and he can't feel any. That was a nice moment when he held her hand.
Yeah. They're made for each other.
Well, we'll talk about that in the next episode. But
Yeah.
So from those aspects, I quite enjoyed. I thought that the trouble of the week was really well done, and especially because Duke was trying to get the blood, and that one time that they did destroy her, she just turned into a pile of rocks. Or plaster, so there was obviously nothing that he could do there. But again, on the interpersonal relationship stuff side, and this is going to sound like a broken record when we get through each of these episodes, but I just find the handling of the Nathan and Audrey relationship really disappointing and very cliched. I don't know how you feel about that part of the story.
Yeah, I agree. I think they are starting a little bit more to talk to each other now, but still, it's like they want to talk to each other, but they don't, and it's just messed up. So
yeah,
I don't know.
It's strictly a stalling technique. Story stalling technique, because if they would just talk to each other, then why can't they just work together?
Exactly.
This whole thing about Audrey, well, if I don't do this, then he'll do anything to save me. Well, he's still doing it anyhow. So why don't you just talk to the guy and work together? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And the psychiatrist character, who may down the road turn out to have a big surprise, like we find out with Tommy. But right now, she's just like a mouthpiece or an earpiece, so that Audrey has somebody to talk to, so that the audience can hear what Audrey's thinking, rather than just Audrey talking to Nathan directly. So that part of the story.
I hope she will have some bigger part in this, because now she's just boring, I think.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I liked in this episode that Duke was actually scared. I think that made him more human than he's always
so cocky.
Kind of cocky. Yeah. And this time we could really see that he was scared, and I liked to see him a bit vulnerable.
Yeah.
So I like that. And I don't know about you, but I think it was pretty obvious that it was the clerk that was the troubled one.
Yeah.
The moment where Nathan is talking to the judge, and she's sneaking around there, and I immediately said that it must be her.
Yeah.
So I think that was a little bit too obvious.
Yeah. And it was rather poetic justice that she ended up in a painting herself at the end. So.
Yeah.
You know, again, the overarching story I really like. It's the character stuff that just kind of irritates me.
Yeah. But I think this was still a little bit better than the previous episodes. It's starting to a little bit better, I think.
Yeah.
And the title of it was Double Jeopardy, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't really know how that.
Well, that means you cannot be in an American court, and probably other courts as well. If you've been tried for a crime and found not guilty, you can't be retried for the same crime. So her Lady of Justice is like the being retried for the second time.
Ah, okay. Then it makes sense.
Yeah. The title to the next episode is pretty straightforward, and that one was Real Estate. So what do you think of this episode?
Well, this one I liked even better. It was more like a haunted house story.
Yeah.
Where they get trapped in this house, that the doors disappears and they can't find their way out, and they find the secret pathway, and so this one I like. I like this story. And we also find out a little bit more about Colorado Kid.
Yep.
We find out his name. And I get the feeling that they are really trying to solve the Colorado Kid. When now that we get the name and everything, it's starting to get closer to the solution to that problem.
Yeah, I think it's because it's tied into Audrey's problem. And when we get to the last episode, I'm going to ask you how the rest of the season is going to play out. But yeah, I agree with you. They're going to resolve the Colorado Kid mystery as part of Audrey's mystery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else? When they were in the house, I think it was pretty well done. The effects with the mirrors and Hello that's hunting the house, hiding in the mirrors, and there's a logic to that. He's trying to see them through the mirrors, and they start shooting out the mirrors.
Yep.
And finally escapes to the house. And one thing that annoys me, and this is out through every episode, is that these two newspaper guys, Vince and
Dave.
No one puts them up against the wall and says, "Tell us what you know," because
Yep.
obviously they know
Yep.
a whole lot more. And when it's very obvious when they come to this house that they've been here before and they know what to do, but still no one asked them.
Yeah, I agree with you. Again, that's another one of those withholding information story devices that the show unfortunately has decided to go with, because Vince and Dave obviously know a lot. And I don't know why Audrey and Nathan and even Duke don't just lock them in a jail cell or somewhere and question them and say, we're not letting you go till you answer all our questions, because it's just ridiculous at this point that they're not being forced to come clean.
Yeah, I agree. So that's a bit annoying.
Yeah.
And Nathan and Audrey is still not solving anything.
No, it's just so silly, like that scene where when Nathan gets hurt. Does he get hurt or what happens there? I can't remember now. But Audrey thinks he's been hurt or something, and then she's really worried about him and all this and all this. And then when they realize he's okay, then she kind of steps back, and then Jordan gives him a hug and all this stuff. And it's kind of like, come on, seriously? That stuff just irritates the heck out of me.
Yeah.
On the strong side of the episode, I agree with you. I love the production values inside the house. I thought they did a great job of moving rooms around and whatnot. And the actor who was in the mirror had an interesting name. It was Roland Holloway, which is kind of a amalgamation of course, Roland from the Dark Tower, and Holloway was one of the boys from Salem's Lot. So, and I have a particular again for this actor, and that's one thing the show's done really well this year is their guest casting. If anybody out there watches Game of Thrones, they recognize this actor, Ian Glenn, who is in that series, and he's just a fantastic actor, and he brings a lot of dramatic weight to a part that doesn't have a lot of screen time. So within the screen time that he has, he really makes this Roland character seem like a real person. So I really have to congratulate the show on that aspect of what they've been doing this season. Yeah,
I agree.
And Dwight the Edge was in this episode, and I thought he was pretty good. It was pretty funny with he was going to blow up the house with C4.
Yeah, I like him. I've said it before, and I like him.
Of course, the other interesting thing was we got to see Audrey's previous incarnation as Lucy, and the man in the mirror, James, is it Cogway, I believe?
James
Coogan, sorry. So we get to see those two in the mirror, and at the time we think that they're probably having a relationship, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And I also did like in this episode, the psychiatrist was kind of funny because she had that Haven High costume on, or cheerleader's costume. Of course, she was pretending that she was like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So that was kind of fun as well.
Yeah.
But there was a moment in the episode where it was just so obvious that they needed to get a gun to another person. So they have this Tommy character. Most policemen, officers, when they've pulled their gun and then they realize that the situation doesn't require it, they holster their weapon. Instead, he puts his on a coffee table. And then it's gone, and he doesn't say anything. And I'm going like, seriously? And of course, it shows up a couple of minutes later because the house is trying to set up these two people to shoot each other. But I just thought that was kind of weak.
Yeah. I don't think a real cop would leave the gun on the table.
Yeah. But overall, it was a pretty good episode. And then we get the ending scene with Nathan and Jordan. They're at the cemetery, and they sit there, and then he kisses her, and it's kind of like, okay, so they're setting us up this other relationship, which is this is kind of lame in a way. But the thing that they don't explain that really bugs me is, yes, Nathan does not get hurt when he touches Jordan, but neither can he feel her. Right? So, so if he's kissing her, he's not feeling anything. So it's kind of like the only person he feels anything with so far is Audrey. If he's feeling anything with Jordan, they don't establish that in this episode. So I don't even buy their relationship on a physical sense, because there's no connection for him. It's really like for her, it's understandable, right? She can touch him not hurt him. But he's touching her, and he doesn't have any feelings, so he might as well be kissing a lamppost for all the excitement he's going to be getting. So,
he might be doing it to get in with the guards and playing on her feelings, though.
Yeah, I definitely
don't know
think that's what happened, because it's so obvious when Audrey and Duke are not talking to each other that they all both really care for each other. So when you see them doing these other things, you're just kind of going like, okay, I start looking at my watch. It's like, okay, this is a waste of time because I know this is not going to go anywhere. So,
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just stalling the story, and I'm sorry to sound like a broken record. It just keeps
But
happening every episode, so.
yeah. And I was thinking that we were going to have something really exciting. When they are in this secret room and we see Audrey as Lucy, and in the first scene we only see the back of the male.
Yep.
And I thought he sounded just like Nathan.
Oh.
So I was like, he's been in this other life as well. But then it wasn't, so
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of disappointing.
Yeah. So overall, again, the main overarching story in this storyline, plus the stuff that they're filling out from the season mythology, I really enjoy.
Yeah.
I really like to see Audrey, or as Lucy, with Tommy back in the past during the time that Roland was still alive. So that's very interesting. But again, the personal stuff just kind of makes me shake my head in sadness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. And what do you feel about the new cop's name?
Tommy?
Tommy, yeah. Is he growing on you, or is he still?
He's never really been annoying to me, but it just seems like, what is he really needed for?
Yeah. He
Like-
feels totally pointless to me, I think.
Yeah,
So far. He's
so far, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So
But in our next episode,
yeah.
we'll
Nice
obviously,
move over to the next episode.
yeah, we'll segue from with Tommy into the Magic Hour, which was a two-parter episode, and we're going to talk about it as one episode. And a lot of mythology happens in this episode, and a lot of reveals. So why don't you tell us about this episode, or these two episodes?
Yeah, we know who the Colorado Kid, we know he's James Cogan, and we find out that he in fact is Audrey's, I don't know what it is really, but her earlier life,
Lucy.
can we say it like that?
Yep.
Yeah, Lucy is, and before that she had another life called
Yep.
Sarah.
Yep.
And it turns out that the Colorado Kid is Sarah's son. Audrey is actually the Colorado Kid's mother, if it's in fact she that is Sarah in the previous life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's starting to get complicated here.
Yeah.
And I don't really know how they are going to solve this. I'm starting to get a feeling that they are in over their heads, but I will give them the benefit of a doubt. But I'm getting a bit worried here. So that's one part of the story. Duke and Audrey is getting kind of close because they are going to Colorado to find out more. And Nathan and Jordan is getting closer, maybe for real or maybe not. We don't know that yet. And we find out who the bolt gun killer is. And it's, ta-da, the series' most boring person. The cop Tommy. And I must say, I didn't see that coming.
And I didn't either, and I'll tell you why, but go ahead.
Yeah. And the big plot in this double episode is that they are hunting two sisters that have the power to resurrect dead persons, dead people. And they are pulling a scam where one sister is killing person, then they blackmail the relatives to get the dead person to live again. And it's Nathan and Tommy who is chasing these sisters. And one thing leads to another, and Nathan finds out that Tommy is the bolt gun killer. And Tommy shoots Nathan, who dies. And that was also a little bit surprising.
Really? You think so?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, I think it was
because
a
of the
little bit-
girl's power? Did you?
Yeah, but when it happened, it surprised me. Then
Okay.
2 seconds later, I realized he's not going to stay dead, but I didn't see that coming, really.
Okay.
But as expected, he gets resurrected, and Tommy escapes and run around threatening. And he actually does what we want everybody else to do. He ties up Vincent and Dave and beats the crap out of them to get some information. So,
Yeah.
rape Tommy. But I don't think he gets any information out of them. But he, at least he tries.
Right.
But it ends out with Tommy fleeing with the boat and Nathan shooting the boat, and the boat explodes.
Right.
So bye-bye, Tommy. We think at least, but it leaves some questions, as I think at least. Is Tommy dead? We know that he was troubled as well because Duke got his blood on him when they fought, and he reacted to it. So we know he had some trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that made him survive the crash, but because no body was found, so we don't know if he's gone.
Right.
And we also see at the ending the end scene where Vince is talking to Audrey. He sees barn that they are talking. They mention this barn. I think it's when Tommy beats them.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't know what the barn is, but it shows up and Audrey can't see it, and Vince see it, but as usual he says nothing. He says everything is fine, and the episode ends. So we don't really know what that barn is or what it will do. I guess it will have something to do with Audrey disappearing.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you.
But we don't know really.
Yeah. Okay, I was totally shocked that Tommy was a bolt gun killer too, and maybe I'm making an incorrect assumption here because in the first episode of this season, when Audrey was she kidnapped by the bolt gun killer?
Yeah, she was.
Okay, because that bolt gun killer was a white man, because we saw his arm when he ripped the tape off of her mouth, and it was a man with a white arm. So, and the voice was different, but I thought they could disguise the voice. But whoever the bolt gun killer was at the beginning of the season, he was a white guy. So
that's very interesting. I missed that.
Yeah. Well, there was something that was twigging me about that reveal, and I thought, his voice, even if he disguised it, I don't think he could disguise it that much. So I went back and watched it to listen for the voice. But when I watched it, and then I saw his arm, and it was an arm of a white man, and I said, well, it can't be him unless his trouble is that he can shapeshift and take another person's identity. So that's what's got me, because we don't know what his trouble is, right?
Yeah, no, we don't.
So
just that he is trouble.
Yeah, so maybe his trouble is that he can assume another person's shape or something like that. Yeah. So maybe because at the end of the first episode, Tommy was putting a body in the trunk of the car, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it was this white guy that was the bolt gun killer at one time. So maybe Tommy's a shapeshifter or something. So I have to say, for a variety of reasons, and they're pretty well the same reasons, both pro and con, that I've been mentioning for every episode, I really like the season mythology arc and how they're handling that. The reveals are very interesting. The fact that the Colorado Kid is in one life Audrey's son. So I'm really loving the overarching stuff here. That the fact that the Colorado Kid is Audrey's son in one life is way cool. I like that quite a bit. And again, I really like the guest star in this episode. The older sister, who is on another series that I really like, is Farscape, wherein she played Aaron's son. She's really dowdy in this episode, but if you see her in the other series, she's really quite powerful and a very vibrant woman. But in this one, she's very dowdy, and I thought she played the part really well. It was kind of funny, actually, to see her playing a part like this, because it just doesn't seem like her at first. So with the glasses and her hairstyle like that, and being dressed down and all that. So that was interesting. But it's the fact that they're continuing this Nathan and Jordan pairing and the Duke and Audrey pairing. They flirt with it a little bit. At one point, Audrey almost gives in with Duke, but then she pulls back, and I'm kind of wondering why. If she's not going to be with Nathan, then like she says to herself, I only got 20 days left, and she might as well enjoy herself. So they're teasing with that, which is annoying.
Yeah.
And so the whole thing about the one sister being able to resurrect people is cool, and that the older sister apparently can't do it initially. So while Nathan, I agree with you, Nathan getting shot was a bit of a surprise, but then as soon as it happened, I said, oh, but of course those girls are gonna that girl's gonna be able to resurrect him. So that really, it was a very quick surprise, but very quickly I got over that. But when she died in the next episode, that was another shock. So but then again, we knew that the older sister would probably have the trouble as well. But I did like the reveal that the younger sister had to choose between her older sister and her father, and she decided to save her older sister, but she never told her why, because she didn't want her older sister to feel guilty. So I really liked that storyline, and I thought both Claudia Black and the younger actress whose name I don't know, I thought they played those parts quite well. And the whole Colorado trip was very interesting because we got to see so much more of Audrey's backstory. The thing of Tommy getting killed was convenient.
Yeah. Do you think he's dead?
I don't think he's dead. And I think he's gonna, if he is a shapeshifter, he's gonna come back as somebody else. So we'll have to see.
Yeah.
But so that was all quite convenient, and I agree with you. It was quite funny to see Dave and Vince tied up and this guy questioning them. It kind of makes me wish that when Nathan and Audrey found them that they discontinued the questioning, but without the
Continue
torture.
to beat them up.
Yeah, because it's very frustrating at this point that nobody sits these guys down and has a serious talk with them. So
I had some problem with his sister's ability, because I don't know if I got this wrong, but when the younger sister brought someone back to life, like the older sister shoots the boyfriend in the head, and the younger sister brings him back, and she get the same wound that he has in the head, and isn't the older sister then holding the younger sister and make that? Isn't she saving the younger sister?
yeah, she saved 2 people.
Yeah, but not when she dies. It's earlier when they run away.
Oh,
The older sister shoots the boyfriend of the younger sister in the head.
Yep.
And the younger sister saves his life, and she gets the same wound in the head.
Yep.
And doesn't the older sister then hold her and make her wound heal?
No, I don't think so. Because her power, her trouble wasn't activated then, right?
No, exactly. And that was, I thought that they were a team, that the younger sister saved the one who died, and the older one had to save the younger sister. So
no, the younger sister has the power to save somebody who dies plus heal herself. That's her trouble. But she can only do it with one person. So like when her older sister saved her and Nathan, then she was going to die, but because her younger sister was revived, then she could save her older sister again.
Yeah.
So
they can keep saving each other, so they can save how many they want as long as they save each other. Yeah, and I had some problem with how they got the older sister's trouble to kick in when they said, "Oh, we're gonna have to hurt the only one you care about," threatening to shoot her. So I didn't really buy the way her trouble started.
Yeah,
I thought that was a little bit forced.
Yeah, and then again, at the end of the episode, when Nathan comes back to life and Audrey's all over him and blah blah blah, and then she stands up, and then Jordan's there, and then she just immediately moves back after obviously showing her feelings, and it's just like, yeah, come on, this is so baloney.
Yeah.
and like Jordan should, if she's a half intelligent woman, she can obviously see that these 2 people care for each other, but yet she still steps that back in and wants to be with Nathan when it's obvious that he's not really in love with her. So it just bugs me so much that they use such lazy writing. I think this is very lazy writing, the way they're handling this relationship.
The only motivation could be that Jordan she has finally found someone she can touch, so you can somewhat feel that she doesn't want to let go.
Yeah, that's understandable. Absolutely. I totally agree with you.
The other ones.
But the other ones, it's quite obvious how they feel about each other. And then, like, the ending scene combines both of these elements that have been bugging us, because Vince talks to Audrey and tells her that he's been lying to protect her, which is what Audrey's been doing with Nathan, which I just don't like that kind of writing. And then he says that he's wrong, and he apologizes, but then he sees the barn, and then he lies and says, no, there's nothing wrong. Then he doesn't technically lie, but he doesn't tell her the truth that he's seeing this barn, which is obviously very important, and he just says that everything is the way it's supposed to be. So again, he's withholding information from her. And then, of course, this comes right on the heels of Nathan and Audrey having their talk, and then Nathan wants Audrey to tell her what's going on, but then Jordan steps outside, and then so Audrey says, no, this is not a good time. So it's kind of like this, all these potentially great moments are all undermined by this weak character stuff. So,
and I mean, she says this is not the time. She has like 18 or 19 days left. It's gotta be time, or time will run out. So
exactly, yeah. So and we'll get it. We'll have to when we talk about the next 2 episodes. It'll be very interesting to see where things go from there. So
they have some major things they have to resolve. Why are these Dave and Vince not talking? They have to have a reason. Because
the only reason is because they want to keep the story from being resolved. So
they have to write in some reason for them to not speak. Otherwise, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And they have to resolve all of Audrey's previous lives and why she's circling with another life. There has to be something more about Tommy, I think, because they can't have. It should be forbidden to have such a boring person for all these episodes. And then, bang! He's the main villain, and then just poof disappears. So I don't buy it. They have to have some more plan for him, or they handle it bad, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And so we come to episode 9 of Haven, which is titled simply Sarah. And this is one of those, if you like time travel, Doctor Who, Back to the Future kind of storylines, this episode would be right up your alley. I have to say that I do like that kind of stuff, though I'm not a big Doctor Who fan, oddly enough. But in this episode, Duke and Nathan are sent back to 1955 in Haven, and a lot of cool stuff happens in this episode, which we're going to talk about. I have to say that I really like this episode quite a bit. The really good things about it are all the time travel stuff and how the connections that they make in this episode. But the bad things is it shows us how silly the rest of the season has been from Nathan and Audrey's relationship. But we'll get into that a bit more to go through the episode. And I just wanted to know what you thought of the episode, Hans.
I agree with you about being a great episode, and I like time travel stories.
Mm-hmm.
And how if you go back in time you affect the future, and just like it's described here. So I liked it. I did have some problems with it though. Then Sarah and Nate, how they immediately felt an attraction for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I assume that was because Nate and Audrey has a relationship in the future. But that doesn't make sense because Sarah wouldn't know about that. So I had some problem with that. And I don't know if maybe it was intentionally done, but it felt almost like 1950s movie when the leading lady and leading man, they just fall in love, and you know what I mean.
Yep, and they even played that music. It was very...
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I had some problems with that, but all in all, I really liked this episode as well. Time traveling stuff and Duke and his father and all of that. So it was a great episode. Probably the best for this season so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. The Sarah Nathan thing happened awfully quickly. They tried to explain it by the fact that Sarah had been in the war, so she was very much about living in the moment and going for it because you just don't know how much time you have, which was a theme running through this episode. But what it does is it just makes Nathan and Audrey's relationship in the present look really silly, because the whole reason now, like I'm assuming if we were to talk to the writers, they would say this is why they kept the two of them apart, because they didn't want it to look like Nathan was together with Audrey all season, and then he got sent back to the past, and then he has this fling with this other woman, Sarah, who is Audrey in a way, but they just wanted to they didn't want Nathan to look like a jerk. But the problem is we had to go through 8 episodes to get to this point.
Yeah.
And this is the relationship that Nathan and Audrey should be having during the whole season. For me, it would just have been a better season if those two were together, as opposed to this, to me, rather silly and old trite, let's keep the two of them apart thing that they've been doing all season. So
yeah, I wonder if that will have some meaning in the rest of the season, that they have in fact been apart, or if it's just some plot they have been running thinking it's a good plot.
Well,
or if it will have a deeper meaning.
Well, I think it does have a deeper meaning. Father of the Colorado kid. We know for sure that Sarah is the mother.
Yeah.
And even though it wasn't shown, I think it's very strongly hinted that Nathan is the father.
Think so?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Do you think they got that far?
Absolutely. Yes, I do. I mean...
Okay.
Absolutely, they in my mind, there's no question about it. So I was just curious how you thought about that.
Yeah, actually, I didn't see it like that at all.
Okay.
They did have a relationship, but I didn't see it going that far. So
yeah,
unless he's for some reason in some way meets Sarah again and they take it further, I'm not sure that he's the father.
No, they're not. He's not going to meet her again. They're not going to go back there again.
No.
But you watch his reaction when Audrey tells Duke that she had a child.
Yeah.
That Sarah had a child, and the look on his face, his reaction. I definitely think that he's the father.
Ah. Well, you might be onto something. I didn't think so when I saw it, but
okay.
It's not totally. I'm not totally dismissing it now when you suggest it. So.
Okay. Yeah.
It will certainly complicate things.
Yeah. Yeah. So now she'll have a legitimate reason for being mad at him.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so we've dwelt on that aspect of the season quite a bit. But specifically to this episode, there was a lot of cool things in here. Sometimes I think they went a little overboard with the time travel stuff, but there were certain elements that I liked quite a bit. I really enjoyed how Duke's arc played out in this episode, especially with his grandfather.
Yeah.
But to get to that point, there had to be one of those dumb moments again where Nathan gave Sarah his gun.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like going, why would you give her your gun? And I was kind of laughing the whole episode. He's walking around town with this modern pistol on the side of his hip, and nobody's stopping him or saying anything. But
Yeah.
that was kind of funny. That was probably the only point of the episode I kind of rolled my eyes a little bit when he gave her that gun, because as soon as he gave her the gun, you knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
But it was cool to see, and I have to assume now that at the end of this episode that Duke is no longer a troubled person, right? Because his grandfather's blood got on his hand and his eyes turned silver, so that means that he took that curse away from him, right?
I'm not sure, because it wasn't him. It wasn't he that killed him, and isn't it that he has to kill the person?
No, he just has to get their blood.
He just has to get.
And that takes the trouble away from them. So based on that, he should not have hit that trouble anymore, and his father shouldn't have it either.
No, they should never have been troubled.
Yeah,
to begin with.
And so the guy that he killed earlier in the season, he might have killed him, but he would have done it a different way.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're just going to gloss over that or if that's going to come back to haunt them. We'll have to see. But
yeah.
So it was kind of cool.
That will turn everything upside down actually for this season if he hasn't gotten that ability anymore.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And as we were talking earlier, they might pull a rabbit out of their hat here. It could be interesting because they have the guy that was playing Tommy, the cop.
Yeah.
Obviously, he has to be a shapeshifter or something. So at the end of that episode where he changed his mind and said he was going to stay, I think that's the point where the real Tommy was killed and the bolt gun killer took over Tommy's shape. So now we have to see where he's at going forward in the rest of the season. He's obviously going to be somebody else. Will he be Duke or somebody like that? I don't know, but we'll have to see. Yeah,
there's a lot of questions still remaining, both about the Colorado Kid now, if in fact Nate is his father.
Yeah.
And I really don't understand how Sarah and Audrey are connected, if they are the same or if they are relatives, or we haven't really gotten that explained.
No, I don't think we'll find that out until the last episode or two of this season, or even if they even go there, we'll have to see. But they're going to have to do something because obviously Haven's been renewed for a 4th season, and the actress will be back next year, so something has to happen to prevent her from disappearing. So unless it's another incarnation of Audrey as another woman. I don't know.
She could disappear and come back as
somebody else,
Lucy or
or somebody new. So
that
will be interesting to see how that plays out. I did like the gold coin, Duke giving it to his grandfather, and then his grandfather putting it in the envelope so that it ends up being a birthday present. There was some nice touches with Nathan saw his father as a child.
Yeah.
Playing with the cars.
That was also, I think, it was cute, but it was also a little bit too much, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, what's the odds that he would actually meet his own father sitting outside the police headquarters?
Yeah.
I mean,
yep.
It's a bit far fetched, but I can understand why they did it. So
yeah.
But I was a little annoyed with it.
Yeah.
It was too obvious to just get out of the audience. So
yeah. Yeah, that didn't bother me too much. There was some dialogue that was really on the nose later in the episode, especially near the end when there's, like, we don't have enough time and all this kind of stuff. And the thing that was interesting was alternate future where the Chief Warnos as an adult was still alive. So that was kind of cool to see the actor again.
Yeah.
That played that
I like
part.
him, so I was glad to see him back.
Yeah, so it was too bad that he was there for such a short time, so.
Yeah. And how about Agent Howard? I mean, he's popping up everywhere, so he has to be someone who has something to say about everything that's going on.
Yes.
He has to play a central role in this, I think.
Yes, and the fact that he was the same age back in 1955 as he is now is interesting too. Again, could that be because he's able to time travel as well, or is he the shapeshifter? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's probably seeds that they're planning for next season, because I doubt if we're going to find out why the captain that Sarah knows and Audrey's boss, who are the same person, then he doesn't seem to have aged at all.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
I agree. I think they're going to save that for next season.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so many episodes left, so I don't think they can't solve everything this season. So it's
No.
a good thing that it's been renewed for a 4th season.
Yes, especially if they resolve whatever's happened here. If Audrey comes back as another person, of course, then that means all the relationships are going to get reset again. So that would be kind of annoying.
But I don't think she's come back. She will come back as a new person.
You think she'll just somehow stay as herself?
Yeah, I think they will figure something out and
They're going to break the cycle?
Yeah, I think so.
I hope so, because that would not be. I know a lot of people get upset about they reset things. I know, like, I don't know if you watch Fringe, but they've kind of done something like that, and a lot of people are upset that the first handful of seasons, depending on how you look at it, no longer have any meaning. But if they would do that with this show, that would be really bad, because there's not enough of the other things in the mythology to, I think, compensate for the loss of the growth of the characters over these seasons.
No, and I think it would be too much like the first season if they started over, and to avoid that they would have to speed through things, and I don't think that would work.
No, I agree.
And it feels like with this episode 9, it's almost like a new season starting.
Yep.
It's totally everything that's happened almost prior to this is like it's happened a long time ago, and now it's starting over.
Right. Yeah, the show has to be careful, because if they start tying everything together too tightly, it makes the story really small. It's kind of like the Star Wars prequels where Darth Vader built C-3PO kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If you make the story that small, it takes away from it. So I hope they're not going to wind it any tighter than it is. I mean, basically, Duke is responsible for killing his grandfather, really, which is, that's got to be tough to live with. And, so it's kind of got like that Back to the Future vibe thing. And if Nathan's the father of the Colorado kid, where are they going to go with that? So, but overall, I really enjoyed this episode quite a bit, even though it retroactively makes the rest of the season not as good to me in a way, but because of the character stuff, right? So
yeah, they might get better from here.
I hope so.
The last episode.
I hope so, but it sounds like Jordan's still in the picture, so, and the psychiatrist was there again, so
yeah.
Unless the psychiatrist, even if she has a big reveal that she's like the bolt gun killer or something like that, like Tommy, it's all those scenes that we had to sit through listening to Audrey talking about her problems with Nathan. That just, but I just don't want to see that anymore. So, but
no, I agree.
Yeah, so
they could have sent her back to the past.
And left
she could
her
have
there.
played a role there and would have got the effects in the future and got rid of her.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see what happens to her. You still have to think that she's going to end up getting killed or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, but I don't know if they want to kill her just to be able to kill off one of the major characters. They haven't made us like her enough to care, really.
Yeah.
It's not like if they would kill off Audrey. I wouldn't really care if they killed off the psychiatrist. So
no, if they did, it would be more of how it impacted the other characters, especially Audrey, I guess, because she knows her the best. So
yeah,
if it was like set up that she was there to see it, or that psychiatrist sacrificed herself to save Audrey, then that's probably the best use they can make of that character at this point. But yeah, just straight out killing the psychiatrist would have no impact really on the fan base, I don't think.
No.
So interesting stuff. We still need to find out what about Dave and Vince. The Nathan and Duke should tie those dudes down and start hitting them with the oar paddle again. And
getting some answer.
Got to find out what's with that barn.
Yeah.
Why is
There's a lot of stuff that needs to be resolved this season, and we only have is it 4 episodes left?
Yes.
It's 13 all in all.
Yep.
So they have a lot of work to do in these last 4 episodes.
Yeah. So we still don't know why the bolt gun killer is making a costume out of women's body parts either. So lots of weird stuff going on. So that's pretty well everything I had for this episode. I would definitely say this was my favorite one of the season.
Yeah, I agree.
Alrighty. So I hope you all enjoyed our review of episodes 5 through 9 of the 3rd season of Haven.
And if you have any comments or disagree with what we thought, you should let us know.
Absolutely, because I'm sure people will be disagreeing with us because we said we definitely had mixed feelings about the season. So it'll be interesting. We'd love to hear how you people are feeling about how they've been handling the characters versus the mythology this season.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
This is great. What's our job? We'd like drive around and pick up stiffs or what?
It's time for reviews from the night shift. So we're here to talk about the webcomic based on the Stephen King short story Little Green God of Agony, and this is a comic that's exclusive right now to StephenKing.com. It was originally appeared in the Stephen Jones 2011 anthology, A Book of Horrors, and was included in Ellen Datlow's The Best Horror of the Year, Volume 4. And what this story is about is a nurse who's taking care of a paraplegic millionaire who wants to exorcise his pain. Dennis Claro, who is a well-known comic artist, who's done work on X-Men, is doing the comic. And why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about exactly why this millionaire is in such pain?
Yeah, because he was in an accident and he really doesn't feel that he has done anything wrong. But he has pain in his legs, and he has a nurse there who is taking care of him, and she's kind of telling us the story because she's heard it being told so many times before, because this millionaire brings in all these different doctors to try and get him better. And now it's been time for yet another doctor to come and try to help him. So the story is told some by the millionaire and some by this nurse who's heard it before. And
heard it all before. Yeah.
Yeah, and she's not really fond of it either, so
yeah.
she wished she could be somewhere else.
Yeah. So at the point of this podcast, the webcomic has been running in serial installments Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays for 8 weeks. So it's currently up to installment 18, and I believe there's 6 more installments to go. Is it?
Yeah, I think
24?
it's been running for 6 weeks, and it should be running for 8 total, I think.
Okay. So they're getting pretty close to the end. We're just making people aware of it. If you haven't read this strip, it is over at StephenKing.com. You might want to wait the last 2 weeks before you read the whole thing. Yeah. For the purpose of this podcast, I read from the beginning up until the last page, and I have to admit I probably would have preferred to wait until the whole story had been told. But
yeah.
By the time I got to the 18th page, I was into the story, definitely.
Yeah, I think the story is a great story, and I liked it when I read it first as a normal story.
Mm-hmm.
And I like it here as well, but it's a good story, but it might not be such a good story to base a comic on.
Mm-hmm.
Because in my mind, it's a story that's being told, not experienced.
Yeah.
And the comic it's mostly people telling us stuff. It's not happening so much as it should be if being in a comic. And I'm not a big fan of the way it's drawn either. I don't know how to say that in a kinder way. I'm sorry. but I feel if you look at the people and if you look at their faces and so they doesn't look alive to me. They look very, very stiff, and in many frames you see it's almost like the character is drawn once and then they have been moved to the next frame as well, and maybe zoomed in or zoomed out a little bit. And I don't know, it's not my art that I like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but the story in itself is good, so I like that. But
yeah, and you
I would have preferred if they would have chosen another story to make a comic of.
Yeah, I hear you. It's because, as you're saying, it's a very much a talky piece. This is basically a locked room story because they really don't get out of the room at all unless it's a quick flashback to the accident. While I do agree with some of your points about the art style, I do think it's because they are limited to this one room. So he's trying to set mood and tone by use of shadow, which means in some instances the walls of the room basically disappear. And you get strange paneling behind the characters to sort of accentuate their mood. A lot of times it looks like they're talking with flashlights pointed up at their faces.
Yeah.
There's a lot of use of shadows in that, so it's not the best style perhaps for this type of story, but I can see what the intent is. There's a lot of use of shadow, and some of the drawings are pretty well black and white as well at times. So it's a tough piece to draw. So I have to give the artist props for trying various visual tricks to make it as interesting as he can. But when you're locked into one room, it's kind of a difficult proposition.
Yeah.
And some of the later panels have a lot of balloon dialogues too. So you know that visually it's almost impossible to illustrate the story. So I think your point about this being a tough story to illustrate is well taken.
Yeah. One thing, though, that I feared, and I think we talked about this, and that is them releasing just one page at a time and 3 times a week, and you get very little to read each time.
Yeah.
And even though I read the 18 first pages now, I think they have succeeded quite well in telling quite a lot in just one page.
Yeah.
So I think that worked better than I thought it would.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
If you read it when it came out and just get one page at a time. So that worked better than I thought it, even though I still prefer to read it all at once.
Absolutely. I agree with you, and I think that one of the strengths of a comic book material is that you can do thought balloons, and they use that quite a bit here, and that's why the story seems a lot more fleshed out because of that. So that's definitely one of the strengths of this approach, is the ability to have some characters talking and other characters thinking out loud.
Yeah.
And they all go together to flesh out the story quite a bit.
Yeah.
So we will leave it at that. We'll report back once the story's done on our final thoughts on it. But we thought we'd just give you an update on where it is at right now. And just to make sure that you're aware of the story in the first place, go over to stephenking.com and check out Little Green God of Agony.
Yeah. And please send in comments if you agree or disagree with us about our thoughts of it. It will be fun to hear what you think. And that ends this podcast. I hope you have enjoyed it. In a couple of weeks, we'll be back again. And that time we will talking about ebooks and our feelings about those. Are they something good? Are they something bad? Is there only one way to read a book, or is there several ways to read a book? And while we do that, we are also going to take a look of the King book or King short story, that was just released for the Kindle. And we are going to we want you to tell us what you think about ebooks versus regular books, if you prefer one of them or not. And the big question we want to have answered now with Christmas coming, how do you gift wrap an ebook? So tell us that. And we're going to go Green Gods of Agony as well, as that one will have been finished by then. So until then, stay safe, but stay scared.